Welcome to Friday Art Talk, and I'm Victor. I'm your host tonight. Tonight we have two panelists, Nancy and Debbie, and they'll introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about themselves before we dive straight into the art and reflect on the previous year, 2020, how it impacted them, how they sailed through it, and what's to come. So with that being said, we got to pay our dues. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Flax Art and Design in Auckland, and also Alameda Municipal Power. Sorry, my groove is not yet on, but we'll get there. More information on tonight's panelists is available at fridayartwalk.com. All these links can be sent to you. All you have to do is contact me, the host, or leave it in the chat and we'll forward you that information. The audience will be muted during the interview. It's a power trip. We like to be in charge. We have a question and answer session will open at around 8:15. It depends on how the discussion will roll because we really want to honor the artists in this discussion. So if they're on a roll, we might delay the Q&A section to a bit later. But people are free to put questions in the chat so we can attend to them once we've gone through the discussion. The show is being recorded and will be available within a week after this, will be airing within a week. So look out for it on fridayartwalk.com or ArtPush. Contact ArtPush to find out more about details. I'm pushing ArtPush because it's an exciting new organization in the Bay Area. All right, so 8:15 to 8:25, that's when we'll have a Q&A. And after that, I will go into announcements. Once again, thanking our sponsors who've been so kind to step forward in these difficult times. And we just want to really honor those people who respect the arts and support the arts. Like all of you who've turned up tonight, the artist is nothing without the audience. So we just want to really thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. And we hope that tonight we might inspire the artists in you to take action and be one of the panelists in the future. With that being said, let's jump right into it. We're going to start off with Debbie. And Debbie, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and after that, we'll get straight into your work.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Debbie, and I tend to go by my nickname, which is Strange Child. It was a nickname given to me by an old coworker friend, so I turned it into my the name for my all my artwork. And I'm from currently the Richmond area, Richmond Annex area. But I was born and raised in the San Fernando Valley, so I'm like a valley girl. And I was surrounded by art all the time. Both my parents dabble in art and everything like that. And it was kind of instilled to me that if you're not, doing anything, figure out how to make something. And just got so used to it that it became secondhand to me. And when we moved, my husband and I relocated up here from LA, I got an opportunity to check something off my bucket list. I earned my degree at SF State, and spent good time working there. And that's where I learned all of my skills and everything. And so I've been on this journey for 2 years now, about on my own, so trying my best. And pretty much just basically trying to create anything that just pops up randomly in my head.
Awesome. Thank you, Debbie. We'll be bouncing right back to you with the next question about what inspires your work. Before we do that, we're going to jump to Nancy and ask her to introduce herself. Welcome, Nancy.
Hi. I'm Nancy Husari, and I don't think I'm on speaker view because I see you, Victor, but maybe I am. But anyway, so let me gather myself here. My main art that I started out with was as a cartoonist and later I did a lot of ink drawings, and I actually think I kind of popped out of my mother's womb already being a cartoonist because I don't really remember when that all started. I just grew up before the digital age, so and I had this one good friend who we had nothing except our imaginations to entertain ourselves with, so we just made stuff up all the time, which eventually morphed into, in grammar school, something called Tilly and the Mummy, in which I rewrote the same comic over and over again, called Tilly and the Mummy, anytime there was rainy day session. So I may have a touch of OCD. But anyway, I'll try not to blab too much in this part because I know we're getting to the other, yeah, there'll be a lot more time. So anyway, let's see. Fast forward, I do a lot of different kinds of art now. I'm a native San Franciscan. I'm very proud of being a native San Franciscan, and I'm so glad to have moved to beautiful Alameda because I really now consider Alameda my home. I moved here in 2005. I do a lot of different kinds of art now, some in color, like the thing that you see in the book is similar to what I have behind me, which is a combination of ink scanned in digital art. I do watercolors. I still do a lot of cartooning. And yeah, I think I'll leave it at that just because probably more will come out later. Oh, and I did want to say I worked at City College for 36 years, and I want to say a big shout out because I saw a little bit of a couple of participants are friends from City College, but I didn't look at everybody because it would make me too nervous.
Thank you so much, Nancy, and welcome, friends. Right, hey, Deirdre, we see you there. Congratulations on your article. All right, so back to Debbie. So what inspired the piece in the book, or what inspires your art?
Growing up, I'm very much Gen X, so pop culture was pretty much my babysitter. And I have an older brother who is very much into comic books and the D&D. He was, your typical classic geek, nerd or whatever. And so I pretty much grew up with comics and cartoons, and I was just very much obsessed with those things. So a lot of my art tends to be a lot more in the pop, very, very bright colors. And the piece that's in the book is more inspired by the work of Salvador Dali and Hannah Hawk, because I just love, I like collage just because I like randomness, like kind of a, whimsical chaos. And that's one of the things that I love about Dadaism is that, and surrealism, that they don't necessarily have to make sense. They're just there to, to tell a story, but a story of nonsense, and Dali always had this like sunset look to things. And so when I saw that one image of, this model sunbathing, I just started playing around in Photoshop and putting it all together. And one of the, that's one of the reasons why I do love collage a lot. And so that was kind of what inspired that. But overall, most of my work is inspired by, a concept of both being therapeutic emotionally and mentally for myself, as well as just being silly and ridiculous. I once got told that my artwork is that it might scare children, which I was like, well, I'm taking that as a badge of honor. But the overall, I dabble in anything and everything, but mostly it's the paintings and illustrations that I do currently right now. And the idea would be just, I like the idea of taking more of the pop culture geek stuff, digital, those kind of works, and questioning that idea about what defines fine art, that elitism kind of attitude, that kind of what's inspired a lot of Dadaism and for Duchamp to basically, throw a urinal up on a pedestal. So, I mean, that's kind of where my work goes.
Awesome. Thank you. I really like that idea of demystifying the whole idea of what art is. It's whatever you make it to be. You choose. Art Push, could we please see the work she's talking about? Do you have the technical skills to bring that up? Well, those guys do that. We do have a question in the chat. David wants to know what your favorite comic book is. And his own collection goes back to the 1930s. So you and David might have something to talk about. Hi, David. Good to see you.
I would say my favorite comic right now is I Hate Fairyland by Scotty Young. It's of this little girl who's trapped in this fairy world. But she's been there for so long, she's so desperate to get out. She's murdering and rampaging through fairyland. But I am definitely a Marvel girl. And because that's pretty much what my brother had around. I love the Max. That's another one. And Tank Girl. Tank Girl is also right to my heart.
Awesome. So you and David have some talking to do after the discussion is through. All right, jumping back into the piece. Walk us through it. It's very surreal.
Yeah, so I saw this particular image of the model, and I just liked the pose itself, and I like the idea of just making it so that she's sunbathing, but I wanted to throw in something that just made no sense. And so I put these flowers coming out of her eyeballs, out of the sunglasses basically. And then I just kind of like warped them so that they looked even more just demented, kind of almost like something's, alien is coming out of her eyes. But she's in this serene pose. She's just relaxed. She's just chill, even though this weird things are coming out of her face. I just thought it looked so interesting to me. And that's pretty much why I put it there. And especially against that nice, perfect, sunset, it just seemed like this would make a perfect like postcard.
Interesting. Very interesting. The thing is, when I saw it, it didn't strike me as weird. There's something surprisingly calm for me about the piece. So it's interesting how the artist sees it and how the audience sees it, so interesting piece. Yeah. Could you talk more about how the pandemic, okay, we'll get to that question once Nancy has spoken about her piece. But another thing I would like to ask before we move on is the sunset. You've mentioned the sunset, a beautiful sunset. Could you speak more on that? Bearing in mind that your nickname was Strange Child.
I look at things from when I put things together, especially with a collage, it's just, I have ADD, so for my brain, I'm sitting there moving the pieces around and just until it looks right, until my brain goes, that's it. And I'll just be randomly throwing things, cutting, if I'm using paper or magazine or something, I'll just cut out random words and I'll just kind of make a poem or something out of them. There won't be any kind of thought to them. And some of that's a lot of the reason why art has been so important to me is that when I'm making art, it's one of the few times where my brain isn't humming all the time. Isn't like running, has 4,000 tabs open, working on different things. It's one of the times where it just kind of shuts it all out and lets that serene happen. So that's kind of what's going on in this, is that, I've got my silliness and everything, but at the same time, there's also this sense of calmness to it when I'm, in those moments, when I'm, in the zone, basically.
Awesome. Awesome. Beautifully put. My takeaway is the piece you said about the mind going quiet, because that's why people meditate, to calm the mind. And it's interesting that art does that for you. And
yeah, I've tried to meditate and my brain just keeps talking.
well, I guess your meditation is art then. There we go. All right, thanks so much, Debbie. Moving on to Nancy. While Art Push pulls up your pieces, so tell us a bit about what inspires your work, and maybe you want to talk about what inspired the piece in the book or this piece.
Yeah, I'll start with talking about what inspired this piece. This piece is called Consequently I Rejoice, which is part of a line of a T.S. Eliot poem called Ash Wednesday. And the second part of the line is Consequently I Rejoice, having to construct something upon to rejoice. So it's this drawing started at 4:30 in the morning, sometime in the fall of 2014, several months after I was first diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And I didn't know it at the time, but Parkinson's disease really can, one of the worst things about it, it has all the obvious things, but people can get very anxious and have trouble sleeping. And so I was in the throes of that before some very good medication solved my problems. But, well, not all of my problems, but some of them. So what happened was I had just bought a new set of Rapidoliners, which have gotten really hard to find, and many of us who do this kind of work have abandoned those in favor of microns, which I like, but I still there's nothing like these Rapidograph Rapidoliners I use Rotrings, they're from Germany. So I did the black and white part in a rather small sketchbook at 4:30 in the morning, probably while watching something really stupid on TV to try to put myself back to sleep. And then I guess I got inspired to scan it in and fill it in with Photoshop colors, which, even though I love, I love the true digital world of using my fingers. I'm stealing that idea from my guru and idol, Linda Berry. She likes digital world. I also like the digital world on the computer because I don't feel like you can't get this kind of really flat, pure color any other way than Photoshop. So, and the reason I chose that title was because Consequently I Rejoice, having to construct something upon which to rejoice, is at a certain point after my diagnosis, I said to myself, hey, this is a disease where you're losing the dopamine in your brain, which is going to cause all kinds of problems because for the moment it's progressive, it's incurable, it's all these terrible things. But there's many people who go on for decades having a really good life, and they don't, there's really no rhyme nor reason, well, except getting a lot of exercise, but I won't get on the exercise thing, at least later. But anyhow, where was I going with this? I said to myself, if your dopamine is being depleted and that's going to cause you to have a terrible life, you better not let that dopamine get depleted, and you had better, as much as possible, do that silly thing you heard about in the est days of, you can't afford the luxury of a negative thought. I actually don't believe that, but I do believe that there are things you can do to be happy no matter what's going on. And so that's what that title is about. And so far, it's kind of worked, and it's a good skill. It's also helped me through the pandemic, and through all kinds of adversities, like to use what I've learned through having this disease. And I also wanted to say that I think there's going to be a lot of research done about how these neurological diseases that affect your brain also affect art, because a lot of people in the Parkinson's community talk about how their art just took off and in a totally different direction after their diagnosis. So something's going on in your brain. It's certainly not worth getting this disease to have your art take off in a different direction, but it is a side benefit that you can utilize. And I think we're sort of recognizing each other in it, that there's certain patterns and if you say, what is this? It's like, I have no idea what this is. That is my brain. That's
Wow.
the inside of my brain. The end.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks so much for that. It's interesting that at each of these talks, what keeps happening is there's always this correlation between amongst the artists. Like here, Debbie talked about her brain calming down, the art calming down her brain, and Nancy is talking about a disease that affects the brain and how art comes, how the artist processes their work through that. So the amazing thing about these talks is when you look back, you'll go onto an island and discover symbols from years ago. You'll see dinosaurs. People talk about dinosaurs, and Sarah talked about the tarantulas. And now we're talking about the mind, which is a great segue into the next section about the previous year, quarantine and creativity. Going back to you, Debbie, how did the previous year affect you as an artist?
Well, it pretty much dried up every avenue for me. At the very beginning of it, my husband, the work that my husband does, his company got hit pretty hard in at the time, and so we had to hunker down on a lot of things, and like everyone else was, and I part of my personality is that I have, I thrive off of being around people, and suddenly having that door shut, it kind of like put me into a bout of depression, and which then hindered a lot of my art, because it was I couldn't come up with ideas, and a lot of the ideas I was working on I didn't care for. But then it was I had to keep I had to keep pushing through, because it's like I have to do something. So I ended up just really pushing and trying everything that I could think of, and I basically just was like, I had to keep in mind that Andy Warhol quote that he said, where he says, make art, don't worry about whether or not it's good or not, let them figure that out. While they're doing that, make more art, So I kind of just stuck to that, and I have developed this character who's kind of my kind of therapeutic way of healing parts of myself. I named her Little Miss Strange. She's this like little girl with blue hair and bunny slippers, and she hangs out with monsters and demons, and she's got a pet octopus, and she's just this happy little dark Wednesday Addams kind of like character, because I was like, I needed something, and when I work on her, I feel really great, and I feel better, because I'm like, I don't care if anyone gets her or anything like that. I think she's adorable. So, I've been mostly working on that during this pandemic, as well as trying to, push my art as much, as put it out there as best I can, while battling depression on top of that.
So I would like you to speak on, imagine you didn't have the art. How would it have shaped this period if you didn't have art at all?
If I didn't have the art, to be perfectly honest, I don't know how I would be here. I really don't. I don't know if I would have been able to handle a lot of this, being shut off from everything, my friends, all of that. I don't know. I don't think that I would be in a good place. That I'm in a better place now, but I wouldn't say that I would have been in a good, I would have been in a very dark place without the art.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's sobering because now we're beginning to look back and see what we went through. You know, we lost friends. Friends lost things that are meaningful to them. We lost connection, but for artists, they had their art to go to, and in going to that art, they give to the world. It's just sort of such a beautiful process that when the artist creates, they give themselves and the world. So thanks for sharing that. That was pretty moving. I love the part about the mind being calmed down by art. Young kids should take that to heart. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
All right, Nancy. So the pandemic, I must put out a trigger warning that, you know, some people did lose a lot. So if this is something you don't want to get into, that's totally fine. But if you're okay with it, how did the pandemic impact you and your work?
Oh, take a deep breath. How did it not impact my my work? It saved me mostly. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have art to do. Some of that was doing art with friends on Zoom sometimes, and a lot of it was doing it myself. Debbie, you and I have a lot in common. We need to talk. Because I have a character called Dr. Psychobabble, who I won't speak a lot about tonight, of whom I shall. Well, there is one example of her from my City College cartooning days. But I cartooned my way through a lot of the first part of the pandemic. I wish I had, I sort of wish I'd done more, but I really chronicled a lot of it. There are some examples, if we can bring them up. I don't know, but if you can't, it's fine. I can just talk about them. I think you've already gotten the idea that I'm a pretty big talker. So this one came as a sort of wrap up of 2020. Can you bring it? Yeah, bring it up a little bit. So what I did was I made quite a few cartoons again in the same style as Consequently I Rejoice, which I drew them in ink and scanned them in. And then I had various cartoons going. There's another one besides this one. This was the one, though, where I kind of took the greatest hits from all the little squares from 2020 and put them into four panel cartoons. So you can probably recognize cutting your own hair. You know, that was a big one. The gray were, and then the coat. You know, the people who do not believe the way I do, think it's a conspiracy at the beach. I'm not judging them. And then, you know, the very, just the horrendous image of George Floyd's death. And I wasn't even able to watch that on video until months after it happened. I've gotten a lot more sensitive to TV during the pandemic. I used to be big on watching crime stuff, but I can't. I have to watch things like Call the Midwife now. And then there's this nutcase, Kim, what was her name? Kimberly, whatever her name is, Donald Trump's girlfriend, who's like Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend, who got up on the stage and the best is yet to come with that red hair. Anyway, so hope I'm not offending anyone who really likes that way of thinking. But anyway, so that was one of the things. This one is, there's Dr. Psychobabble. She has, I started her like in 1986. And I'm starting to kind of twitch a little bit, so I'm glad I told you that I have Parkinson's, so you won't think, what is up with her? She can't sit still for 5 minutes. You're right, I can't sit still for 5 minutes. So this was when Dr. Psychobabble started in 1986, when I started sort of trying to kind of get into the underground cartooning world. And I decided I needed a really recognizable figure, but I didn't want her to look anything like me. So she's got long, curly, dark hair, which I do not have. And she always has like these polka dot things on. Now, this was at the beginning of City College's accreditation crisis. Can you make it come up a little bit on the screen to see the very bottom of it? I don't know if you can or not. Yeah, there we go. So some of this is very esoteric because it had to do with specifics that were happening with the accreditation crisis at City College at the time. many of you know, City College is still suffering, to put it mildly. And it was also when Les Miserables came out, and I loved that movie. I'm sort of embarrassed to say, I think I saw it in the theater at least twice. So there's a little song up there, sort of comparing what was going on to was at City College to, I Dreamed a Dream. But then there were things like, so we at the bottom, I love things like this. This still cracks me up, where it says, morale not shown, way too low to fit on this piece of paper. Those are the kind of little details that I like. So that was one of my City College cartoons, which I did, and sort of, I'm going back to sort of the black and white, but that's sort of then, and now I'm going to focus on the pandemic. So let's move on to the only other one of these three that we haven't seen yet. We saw the 4-panel one, we saw this, and there's one more, if we could take a look at, we can bring it up. That one, yeah. So this was one of the early ones, and you don't have to read the whole thing, obviously, it's really long and wordy, but it was April 2020, Dear Corona Diaries, this shit is getting real. And then this was just my life with my cats. Hey, this is okay, I can draw, I can catch up with old friends. And then in the next panel, I don't know how much longer I can take this. And then the cat's going away and you see the cat butt. Please don't leave me, you are my only friend. And then it continues from there. And, just shit did happen during the pandemic. I had it pretty easy myself because I was already retired. And I had my routine because I was doing art. One of my jobs is getting exercise. That's just it, because it's the only thing that will stop the progression of Parkinson's. And I've always liked to exercise anyway. And, I live alone, so I had to get my minimum requirement of other human beings. So I would go on a lot of walks with one person masked up, on the beach in Alameda. That was another thing I did to keep myself sane. And my mind just sort of wandered off here, and I was going to say something. I was going to go somewhere with all of this. Oh, and then things happened that were unexpected, and so a real low point for me was when the big wave that happened in the beginning of November, where we were told we shouldn't even see our families, on Thanksgiving. Well, I got through Thanksgiving, and 2 days later, one of my 2 remaining cats got very sick and died on January 6th. I had her kindly killed in the house. A vet came, and she left her body at exactly the moment that they were starting the insurrection of the Capitol. So Casey went out when that was coming in. And that was really hard to be that so isolated during something like that. And the remaining cat, Maya, and I are still kind of adjusting to it. We get up in the morning and say to each other, oh, it's you again. Aren't there any other cats around here? But anyway, I think that kind of sums up me and the pandemic. I have no idea what I just said, but I trust that it was something.
Oh, it certainly was. Thanks for sharing that, and for going deeply personal to both of you, for really digging deep into your lives and sharing that aspect of it. Why I asked that question is because a lot of people don't have any idea what to do with themselves. So I find it a blessing to talk with artists and share with them how they go through tough times as we went through. It's funny because tonight we've laughed, we've had heavy moments, all through images. So the power of art is undeniable, but more undeniable is the knowledge it brings through. Like, how do people survive through it? Do we know what we're doing? According to Debbie, no, we don't. We're creating nonsense, but it brings a lot of joy to the world. And Nancy's statement about the morale not fitting on the page, that's so true to life. We laugh at that, but it's so true. The truth never makes the news, but the advert makes the spot. So thank you both for for sharing so deeply. I would like to just round it off. We got 10 minutes. You guys are fantastic. Oh, we had one guest less. So you guys are still fantastic nonetheless. I would like to round it off with the question, what would you say to people about doing art, about being an artist? How do you know you're an artist? How do you begin? We'll start with you, Debbie.
I come from one of the classes that I took at SF State was philosophy of art, and it was, he started off the question with, how do you define art? And he goes, what makes something art? It's like, can this be art? Can that be art? It's that kind of, just really sit and think about it, like what is, and so I thought about it, and for me, the definition became, art was anything that was created with the purpose of evoking an emotional response in a viewer or a participant, basically. And I saw that as meaning, like, cooking is a form of art. Welding, sword making, things like that, they have an element of art to them. And when I found, when I was, when I started going back, going to school and learning everything, I was also, going through some, like emotional work and everything like that. And I found that pairing those two together worked. And that it was able for me to go, I can point to this picture, that I did, or this image, or this poem, or anything, and say, here, this will help you understand. And it really, it helped immensely with a lot of things. It helped me be able to give a voice to things that I was uncomfortable with giving voice to, or emotions that I wasn't sure were there. A lot of that, like Jackson Pollock, kind of mentality of the, or abstract expressionism is you throw the paint at the canvas, and, then you go take a step back and go, okay, I think I've got some rage problems going on here, or those kind of things. It's so if someone's questioning, I go, well, what is something that you like to do? Do you like to, do you like cartoons? Do you want to draw them? Do you want to voice them? Do you want to act them? Or do you want to, do you really like cooking? You can make a gorgeous spread being a piece of art, unto itself, because it creates an emotion. People are connected by food, by a culture, by a religion, by a just family, things like that. So I look at it this way. I'm like, just for someone who's trying to figure out if they're an artist or not, I go, well, what is something that you like? And then go from there, basically. And I always say to like a kid or something, I go, we always make the joke of like, when we go into to museums or something, and we look at a painting or something and go, my 5-year-old could have done that. I'm like, well, yeah, your 5-year-old could have done that, but your 5-year-old didn't do that. It's like, just try. That's my whole thing is just try.
Beautiful. I love that. Especially the part of doing and not doing. It reminds me of a quote I heard. I think it's from Star Wars. Apparently a guy said, do or do not, there is no try. I heard, yeah, anyway. Thanks so much, Debbie. That was very well put. And my takeaway is do or do not. Don't judge it, just do. Thanks so much. Moving on to you, Nancy. A teenager is struggling with the existential question, who am I? What do I do? How would you share your journey on discovering you're an artist, on allowing yourself to be an artist?
Well, I kind of think our culture has it all wrong about what art is. I love the cultures where everybody does art together and nobody signs it, where there's no ego involved. And it's not just because I'm anti-ego, it's just because it seems like so many people think they're not an artist and everybody is. And so that's all it is, that's it. And I've learned a lot about that in the pandemic because um, one of the really fun things I've done is I think somebody from my morning group is here, but on March 13th, 2020, one of the wonderful people in the Parkinson's community named Amy Carlson started this thing called Amy Says Dance. And every morning we've gotten up and danced every single morning. So not everybody makes it every single day, but we get up and dance every morning. And I never really thought of myself as much of a dancer, but I I just love doing it because it's so free, and I love these. That's when I love the little Zoom squares to do that in. So that's me doing something that I don't quote unquote think I'm good at, and it doesn't matter. And another thing that happened during the pandemic is another friend has had these themed parties where we get up, we dress in costumes, and so like last Saturday, I was dressed up as a lizard with a lizard mask. It's downstairs, so I put it on. And off. It was by far the most uncomfortable costume I've ever worn in my life. I could not hear the music, I could not see, I could not breathe, but I won the dance contest. So I digress. So yeah, I mean, I just can't. I just think it's one of the greatest tragedies that people don't know they're artists. That everybody's an artist, and
Beautiful.
they can bounce from one medium to the other. You don't have to say I'm an artist in this. I worship Linda Berry. She teaches a class on the East Coast every year called Writing the Unthinkable. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but when everybody says what cartoonist do you admire, it's Linda Berry all the way. She just teaches anyway. I know this is not about Linda Berry, it's about me, but she really teaches us to open up. It's writing and drawing. She won't let people look at who is reading something when they're reading because she doesn't want people to get self-conscious, and she doesn't want anybody to comment on other people's art and writing outside of the class. Just very so people can free up that side of them. It's just yeah, I mean, there's so much to say about it, but it's one of these things that just renders me speechless because it's such as I said, it saved my life in so many ways, especially during the pandemic, but in other hard situations too. But so many people feel like they can't do it because you have to be special or talented, or just only have one form of art and have studied it for a long time. So yeah.
Beautiful. Wow, thank you so much. I would just like to sum it up from what I got from it. This is not set in stone, this is not gospel, but just to round it off, I love the way it came around to allowing yourself to do what you love. To borrow Debbie's line, what you like, what do you like? And then going to Nancy, everybody's an artist. We're born artists. We stop kids from scribbling on the walls, and then the destruction of the artist begins. So thanks, Nancy, for reminding us that we are all artists, we're born with it. And as we get older, those permissions are taken away from us. And maybe if we remember what we like, maybe if we allow ourselves to be, not to be limited by genre, what medium you use, to just respect yourself for being an individual with something they like, that could change the world. That could make the world remember that we went through a year like this, through a whimsical looking cartoon that holds truth in it, through a picture of a sunset that reminds you not to take yourself too seriously because life is beautiful. It's been a great discussion, and I would like to leave some time for Q&A so that people can interact with our panelists. But before we do, we've always got to pay our dues, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So the first due we're going to pay is that join us for the second Friday of June's Art Talk. Will be second Friday, same platform, same format. So you can join us in June again. And also we have a quick thanks to our sponsors once again, Flax Art. It's humbling to see a business step forward and support an arts organization when they're going through a hard time too. So Flax did donate some gift cards for the artists. So the panelists will be taking home some gift cards. We'll have to organize that without push. But would like to thank Flax for that. And for Alameda Municipal Power for stepping up and supporting the arts. We hope that more organizations and government departments start funding artists and art more. Start funding the soul of the city, making discussions like this more possible, where we can really get to the heart of the matter and know that we are allowed to be creative. So would like to thank those two sponsors, and hopefully more will join. Hint, hint. Please check out Studio 23's outdoor closing reception at Flax Art and Design in Oakland. That's closing on the 29th of May at from 3 to 5 p.m. So that's a Saturday, the 29th of May, Flax Art and Design. We have a group show there hosted by Studio 23. So please do check that out. We have an Art in Nature. This is a chance to interact with the artists in real life. Sarah, if you can wave your hand so people see you. That's Sarah Edge, and she'll be hosting an Art in Nature meetup on Saturday, the 15th, which will be tomorrow starting at 2:30. So you can visit meetup.com and look for Alameda artists. Sorry, it's a lot of talking. I sound like a radio DJ. For details to RSVP. Otherwise, if this is too much information, please do go to Friday Art Walk and look for my number, or I'll put it in the chat so you can text me, text Jess, so we can give you details. But we do have the Art in Nature happening tomorrow. It's on Meetup. If you look up for Alameda artists, it should pop up. You can watch this show and past shows if you go to FridayArtWalk.com. We've had Yolanda has been on it. The other right, sir, if you could just wave so people see who you are. That's the other right. He's been one of our panelists. Deidre has been on our panel. And who else do I see? Sarah and Dave have been on our panel, which opened up my eyes to your guys' art. It's totally fantastic. I recommend you check out their artwork. Look for their talk too. It's not the best because Dave is in there, but it will do. Let's see. Right, at this point, would like to give it over to the panelists first to talk about anything happening in their community they'd like to share, anything art related.
I 100% on my own, basically. So, if you want to see my stuff, feel free to go to astrangechildcreations.com. Check out my stuff. I'm also on Instagram as well. There you can, find me, A Strange Child. Just support the local artists as much as you can. That's all
Thank you, Debbie. And Nancy?
Well, I'm one of these artists, I know we're very rare, who absolutely hates doing the business part of stuff. So I don't have much to publicize myself with, but I do have a website that is completely out of date, but it's easy to remember, www.nancyhusari.com. I'm fairly active on Facebook, and I do have an Instagram account that has had like the same 6 pictures on it for the last 3 years, and I haven't even looked at it for many years. And I think that's it.
Well, thank you, Nancy. I, like you, got to learn that it doesn't work that way. Apparently, you have to keep feeding that Instagram.
I know.
Well, all the information about the artists is available on FridayArtWalk.com. And you can also find previous talks, like I mentioned. At this juncture, I would like to open the floor up for any questions for the artists. I know David would like to connect with Nancy and Debbie to talk about art. So please, David, if you can just wave your hand so Nancy and Debbie see who you are. That's David. He's been a patron of this this the art talk since day one, since inception. We appreciate that, Dave. All right, so let's go. What are the questions? Comments? Suggestions?
Not all at once.
Yes, Deirdre wants to ask a question. Could we unmute her?
Yes. Hi, guys. I'm wondering, Nancy, what is a rapidograph?
Well, it's just one of those ink. I hate to say ink pen because that's what people said in elementary school, and it was very repetitive. But it's just, yeah, it's a pen that you fill with ink, or sometimes they come with cartridges. They're messy. That's why people have probably abandoned them and use more microns and so forth. But Deirdre, you're somebody who I want to get together with, so you got to come over and I'll show them to you. Yay!
There we go. That's what it's about. Awesome. Cool. Yes, we have Bonnie's got a question. Could we unmute her? Could we have permission to have Bonnie talk, please? Art push.
You look frozen.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
There we go. Hi, Victor. Hi, everybody. I have more a statement rather than a question. And I've been an artist for almost 40 years. And during the pandemic, I started taking drawing with Nancy. And that has just changed my whole art career. I mean, I look at things so differently now, and just that contact with somebody. And I always was afraid of drawing. And now I feel much more relaxed about it. I don't have the expectations that I had when I was in school. It's like, I'm doing it because I love to do it rather than it's an assignment and I have to get it done. And now I'm moving into incorporating that into my regular work, combining it, multimedia. So a big thank you to Nancy, my good friend, and onward. And I love her work. I have a lot of it at my house. So she does some fantastic stuff.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you, Bonnie. Before I get to David, I would like to apologize to Art Push for blaming you for technical difficulties. It's actually the latency is it's Zoom. It's not Jessen Web. So I apologize. I sincerely do. I thought you were power tripping. Anyway, so David who's got a question while the latency kicks in. So there we go. Community again, encourages people to step out. You're unmuted. You're free, Dave.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask Nancy first, who is your favorite cartoonist? And a statement for Nancy, you are not the only person who is, forgive the expression, I call myself a technological troglodyte, and it's kind of hard to learn. Debbie, I really sense a kindred spirit, and I am curious as to who your favorite comic book villain is. Mine is Thanos.
My favorite villain. That one's hard. I had to think about that one. I mean, cartoon wise, just in general, is Maleficent. She curses an infant because she wasn't invited to a party. She doesn't get much more amazing than that. But I mean, yeah, I've got a bunch of artwork of Maleficent in my house. But yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna have to say I'm hardcore Disney, fanatic. It was Disney really popped when I was going through a very, very, very dark time in my childhood, and it was what got me through it. but it was specifically the villains that got me through it. It was like, if you don't have a good villain, I don't think your Disney movie was really great. But yeah, Maleficence is, I was gonna say, but my all-time favorite is Alice in Wonderland, because I like the idea of going into an alternate world. I've read the book. I have Alice all over the place. And several of my tattoos are Alice oriented. But yeah, I would have to say for a villain, it's got to be Maleficent.
Awesome. On to you, Nancy. I think there was a question for you too.
Yeah, about my favorite cartoonist. Well, I've already, sung the praises of Linda Berry to the heavens, but I also really owe a lot of gratitude toward the women's comics collective. This is not women as in WOMEN, like, and I'll say it again. No, it's not women like us, all these people here on the screen, but women as it's a proper noun, WIMMENS. So some of you of a certain age may remember who women's comics are. I'm not sure if I'm using subject-verb agreement correctly there, but anyway, they were sort of an answer to the male-dominated underground cartoonists of the 60s and 70s, like R. Crumb and all those people. There was a very strong group of women cartoonists that came out of that. Some of them were the wives of these cartoonists, like Aline Kaminsky Crumb and what's her face? Anyway, I can't remember. Memory's gone. But the leader of the group is Trina Robbins. So I don't know if you know her. And she is just dedicated to championing whatever it is, women cartoonists. And so, I mean, I just, in the old days, this was in the late 80s, I just looked her up in the phone book and called her, and she invited me over to her backyard, and I showed her my cartoons, and she said, oh, those are good, you could da-da-da-da-da. She really helped me. And then it was sort of fast forward, I ended up in the very tail end hanger on of women's comics. I made it into the very last issue, which is called the Kvetch issue, and everybody wrote a cartoon. Like they were very wordy in those days. People now don't have the patience to read those heavily wordy underground cartoons. And then so I got into that, and then years later I ran into her. I guess it was in 2012 when they came out with the anthology of women's comics, which actually won an Eisner Award. So I was a part of that too, and I was in, and she really helped me. And I know, and made me feel welcome, and took me sort of by the hand and led me through the process. And I know she did that for so many women cartoonists. So I really, owe a lot of gratitude to Trina Robbins and all the women's cartoonists. Carol Leshen is also another person. She teaches at USF now and is getting into doing digital art and cartooning and illustration. And I love her work also. So.
Thank you, Nancy.
Sure.
Awesome. You learn so much. Now I know about cartoonists. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that now. I'd like to move on to Howie Howard. He's got a question. Thank you, Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
You will be unmuted in a few seconds. There you go.
We're unmute. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to add. It's not a question. I wanted to comment. I was a software developer for years, and I always felt that computer programming, particularly for Microsoft Windows when it came out, was really an art form. That is, it was almost like you were creating something. It was like a craft, creating a tool of some kind that was, and it was it was multi-layered. It was visual. It was also interactive, and you never really knew in advance what would happen if you took a particular action, like clicking on something, or typing something in if there was a place to do that. And when we had a software company for a while in Nova Scotia, and we always had an artist actually working with us. And in fact, one of them was a guy from Finland who was an art student, and he worked for us while he was going to school. And this was back when, in the 80s, 90s, early 90s. And now he's back in Finland, and we're Facebook friends.
Awesome.
No, I just wanted I just wanted to comment that computer programming itself was an art form. Now I find that I stopped doing it because people aren't using computers anymore. They're using telephones. And I always felt that format was just too small to do the kind of things that I wanted to do graphically in computer programs.
Well, Howard, if we give you all the space to let your creativity roam, you won't be we can't control you that way now, can we? We have to keep you in check. The smaller the screen, the smaller the brain. All right. Thanks, Howard. Okay, we'll move on to Jason. Jason's got a question. Go on, Jason.
This is either going to get me points or sleeping on the couch.
That's my husband, by the way.
Oh, choose your words carefully, my friend.
No kidding. Actually, this is a question for both Nancy and Debbie. We have had centuries, millennia of what defines art. Paintings, drawing, sculptures, writing, etc., etc. We are now in the digital age. We have NFTs and emojis that are being sold for millions and millions and millions of dollars. My question to both of you is, where do you think art is going? What is that evolution? I'm totally sleeping on the couch.
I mean,
good question.
For me, being the art history nerd, I feel like because of everything that's going on around the world, art is primed for some kind of new ism, I would say, and it's just going to take somebody to break it. Basically, it's all of the if you look through history, specifically art history, you see how the isms were, how they began is a matter of the pushing the question of but why is that the rule, basically. I mean, you have Cezanne going, why do I have to paint it to look exactly like the thing? Can I just do it differently? You have, and then you have Duchamp going, but why is that art and that's not art? Then you've got, you've got all of the abstract expressionists of going, well, why do I have to make anything? And then you've got, and then you go into the cubism, you go into all of these different, it was just basically, it's a form of the, moving the goalposts a little further down, but also kind of opening the box bigger, going, why do we have to follow that rule? Why does it have to be that way? And I really think that we're primed for that. And I think it's beginning with well, why does fine art have to be that basic? And I think that's what's slowly breaking it, is it's starting with the questioning about the diversity of the museums and the more, the higher end of those things, where it's a very small elite group. And a lot of people are going, why can't we be a part of that? And why aren't there more, more female? It started with why aren't there more female artists being represented? Then it's now why are there not enough people of color? Why are there not, and so on and so on down the line. I think because of with the pandemic and with this sudden shift in thought about all these different types of social issues and things that and how they ripple across everything, I think that art is going to eventually have, kind of a snapping, kind of someone's light bulb's going to go off, and they're going to question why does it have to be that way? Why can't comic books be considered art? Or why can't, little dots on pieces of paper be considered art? It's like, why isn't cooking an art? It's like, someone's going to do it. I don't know who, but someone. And because that's always how it is.
Absolutely. I have to round it off here, and there will be free chat after this, but we have to kind of like act like we know what we're doing and end it somewhere. Thank you so much for that. And Jason, I would just like to say, art questions, art breaks boundaries. And Christie's was defining artists. If you sold at Christie's, you were an artist. So NFTs came around and said, no, you're not. We're going to sell for millions and you can't contain it. You can't even touch the art. You can't even own it, but you're going to pay for it. So creativity is being recognized at a higher level than we ever imagined. And like Debbie said, who makes the rules? Who decides? So I feel true art questions and pushes boundaries. So this is where we are. Well, thank you so much. This has been an amazingly invigorating and thought-provoking discussion about life, from mind matters to our state of being, to what is art, to allowing ourselves to create. So we hope that this inspires other people to get their creative juices flowing and just go out and be yourself. Do what you like, as long as it's not hurting anybody. This is Victor, your host for the Friday Art Talks, and I would like to thank you all for coming through. I would like to thank our panelists. I would like to thank our previous panelists, but mostly thank you to the audience who make it happen. There's nothing as depressing as an art talk with just the panelists and the hosts. So thank you.
Thank you, Victor.
All right. And 3 and 2 and 1.
What happened?
Cut. All right.